Legend of Spyro Dawn of the Dragon is a 3D action platformer and the third entry in the Legend of Spyro trilogy. As the conclusion to this epic dark fantasy series, it has a hefty responsibility. It must resolve existing plot threads in a satisfying fashion, but also forge its own engaging narrative. Oh, and some solid game design would certainly help too. Fortunately, Dawn of the Dragon starts on the right claw, leading with some incredible cinematography, a flashy new combat system, completely reworked art style, and thick, mystical atmosphere. Such a massive departure from prior entries was a bold choice, and the results are rather mixed, though things trend toward the positive. While A New Beginning and Eternal Night were methodical, rigid, and deliberate in their combat, Dawn of the Dragon is fluid, freeform, and far more stylish. Player experimentation is still at the heart here, with a great emphasis placed on chaining grabs, elemental powers, and melee combos. Not only are there many options at your disposal, strategy is a necessity, and the game demands a lot from the player. I'm a big fan. It's not easy to balance a huge variety of moves with actually challenging enemy encounters. There's also a much greater emphasis on platforming this time around, with environmental traversal and open exploration at the forefront of the game design. This was a completely unexpected shift after the first two titles were strictly linear, but it's certainly for the better. Exploring in Dawn of the Dragon is breathtaking. There are so many grand, sweeping vistas littered with secret alcoves, upgrades, and optional mini-bosses. Your eye will naturally be drawn to the gorgeous set pieces, and when you fly over, you'll find loot aplenty. Much of my game time was spent just wandering around the maps looking for treasures and armor. So few games understand the joy of discovery, but Dawn of the Dragon gets it. To sweeten the pot, each level boasts its own design theme. Avalar is largely open, focused primarily on exploration, but the catacombs are built around segmented, LEGO-style action-adventure puzzles. The Dragon Temple explores the flight mechanics and platforming, and Warfang is all about fast-paced, high-tension multitasking. Considerable effort has gone into providing each location with a distinct identity. In addition to all the challenging combat, enticing exploration, and varied design, there's a general air of majesty and mysticism which permeates everything. From the dark, terrifying temples to the vibrant valleys to the crumbling cities, every location feels so alive and ephemeral. Rays of light pierce through every crack of Avalar, luminous spires of volcanic flame erupt from Malefor's burning kingdom, and the texture of fantasy has never felt more visceral. This attention to detail and inescapable atmosphere is the game's spiritual glue, binding the whole experience in a rich tapestry of true adventure. It's something quite special. But unfortunately, I have to bring us down from this well-earned high, deep into the depths of dire design shortcomings and rampant mechanical bugs. To grab the low-hanging fruit first, the camera and flight controls are unbelievably broken, particularly in co-op. Flying in this game may appear majestic, but it feels like being swept up in a vindictive tornado. Invisible gusts of wind will batter you and your partner around, forcing you to adhere to strict predefined pathways. To make matters worse, the camera will often lose sight of you and jitter around madly, making basic traversal a tremendous uphill battle. It is possible to get good at the flight mechanics and camera control with enough practice, but that's irrelevant because it clearly isn't functioning as designed, and it detracts immensely from the core experience. Playing solo does mitigate these issues, but I still think co-op is worth the suffering, and that's because the multiplayer is tied directly to the game's narrative themes, and those themes are pretty solid. Basically, this is a story about unity. It's about the duality of dragonkind and existence at large. Cinder, with her corrupting touch, and Spyro with his endless valor, must both work in harmony, pooling their resources to stand against the tyranny of fate itself. They must prove that the future lies in cooperation, compassion, and undying trust, not in betrayal, darkness, and insecurity. Sounds pretty good, right? I certainly think so, and it gives us some pretty stellar dialogue scenes which bring many plot elements and character motivations full circle. Even the world building gets time to shine, which is unfortunately unusual for this series, but yeah, it's all here in a big way. Toward the very end, things get more explicitly metaphysical and metaphorical, where Spyro and his villainous counterpart argue directly over the future of life itself. The ending is deliberately poetic and ethereal, with Spyro being absorbed into the world's heart and reshaping the crumbling planet with his will. The purple dragons are the bringers of change, the dawning of a new age, and today, beauty, hope, and kindness have bested destruction. Not thanks to Spyro's own greatness, but instead through his unbreakable bond to Cinder. By fate or by coincidence, it doesn't matter. They've proven that love is what truly lies at the heart of all things, that love is reality itself. I probably just made Dawn of the Dragon sound like a high-minded, spiritually splendid masterwork, and in some ways it is, but in many others it's deeply flawed. The post-credits scene ruins the noble sacrifices and poignant themes of the ending for just one example. But there's also the uneven boss battles that focus on spectacle over substance, and at least one particular level that's so tedious and terrible that it feels like pulling teeth. But there's still nothing else quite like Legend of Spyro. For all its floundering, this is a deeply rewarding journey with rich themes, gorgeous music, and the true heart of fantasy adventure. I'm very glad I played it, and I will revisit it many times more.